Hey guys, Level Who here with some Battlefield 4 discussion. I'm talking some map strategy, specifically Siege of Shanghai with BrettFX. If you don't know Brett, he's casted a ton of Battlefield 3 matches and has organized 32 versus 32. So, Brett, looking at this map, what stands out at you?
Well, first off, what stands out to me is the fact that the way it is shaped. We're going to have a huge waterway right in the center of it. And that right there reminds me a lot of Sign Crossing from Battlefield 3. Only thing that's different about it is the fact that there's not a bridge connecting A and E. So what you're going to be really finding here, in my opinion, is a lot of choke points happening over there on C, and a lot of some boat warfare going on between A and E. Now, you would think that there would probably be, people just swim across, they'll use boats, but I mean, if you look at Sign Crossing, majority of the time, what happens on Sign Crossing? They get stuck on the bridges.
Yeah.
You get stuck over there on C, and that's where the majority of the fight. Almost nobody pays attention to spawn bridge between A and D. So I think what you're probably going to be seeing the same exact thing on this map. You'll be seeing a lot of the players playing over there towards C, B, and D, and it's also going to make a difference as to what is actually going to be at C. As you can see over here on the left-hand side of the command screen, it's got a gunship. Who knows how powerful those things are going to be? Can it be, a game changer? Will it win you the round? Because if it can, it's going to make it even more important. Or are people going to say, you know what, screw it, we don't need those. We'd rather just try and cap flags and just win by tickets.
Yeah, I gotta say, as an air person, I find it interesting that all of the cap points seem to have an upper cap and a lower cap point, meaning that you can cap that flag without necessarily having to expose yourself to fire from, say, that gunship you mentioned, from actually even the attack helicopter. So I think at least the attack helicopter might be relegated more to defending against pushes, busting armor, that kind of thing, and may not be the kind of influencing factor that it can be on some of the open maps like a Battlefield 3's Caspian border, things like that. So
Well, also you have to think about the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of anti-air on this map. If you looked at the stream from the E3, you didn't really see a whole lot of AA. Mostly, it was basically for people shooting from the ground. I'm almost tempted to say that this is going to be whoever has the best chopper pilots will do the best. You might be seeing, especially from a competitive standpoint, something like what happens on Karg Island or Caspian, where the choppers will actually find a defensive spot, and they'll probably bombard C from either E or behind D flag. But as far as being super aggressive, I kind of agree with you. I don't think that that's going to happen with the attack choppers. But then again, with no AA, they could have the run of the land.
yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how the boats end up playing out. We saw in one of the clips a boat sporting a TV missile that could definitely be a threat to the air. Plus, the boat appears to have the ability to look pretty far up in that. Something similar to the way APCs used to be in, say, Battlefield 2, where the APC's main gun was a serious threat to the helicopter, whereas in Battlefield 2 you had just that, you could barely get the nose up on an APC, and it hardly was a threat unless you were just super low in the attack helicopter. So as we've all seen from the trailers, you see that giant skyscraper in the center come crashing down as part of the Levolution, which not only changes that flag capture point, but of course throws a bunch of dust and smoke and things like that in the air. For competitive play, 32 versus 32, or some of the smaller 8 versus 8, 10 versus 10, is that something you would see factoring in as a strategy? Would you take the time or effort to take that building down?
Well, it really depends on how how hard is it to take down. If it's something that's going to be fairly time consuming and it's going to soak up a lot of resources to end up taking it down in the end, I think that most teams will say, what, screw it. Especially if you go into the smaller 12v12, 10v10 type stuff. Not saying that will be played on this map, but you might be seeing a smaller version where, like on 10v10, there's only going to be a B, C, and D flag for a 3-flag conquest or something. But I don't think that it's going to play that big of a role in it. Now, if it is easy to bring down, it's going to come down within the first few minutes. They will basically set a group of guys, a tank, something to blow those pillars out, because what it's going to end up doing, they're going to get up onto that, and there's a chance that a a lot of people are going to end up getting killed on their team. I would say that most likely, if it's hard to take it down, nobody's going to care. If it isn't, if it's fairly easy to bring down, it'll come down within the first few minutes. Both teams will be looking to take it down.
Yeah, I gotta say, it. I almost gotta think it's gonna be a gimmicky kind of thing. It certainly does seem to affect, from an air standpoint, as far as your visibility on the ground, but I just am not 100% that it's gonna be worth the effort, especially to dedicate the kind of resources to it.
Well, I
So
mean, to be honest with you, though, let's. You just said it may affect the air. Air is going to be able to have thermals. So unless that is banned throughout competition, it's not even going to matter. So like in 32s, if you bring that tower down, they'll just put thermals on. It's
true.
not really going to affect it that much. I think honestly, it's like you said, it's pretty much a gimmick, unless there's something some kind of value that it gives. Like I don't know, will it be easier to cross the water if that thing comes down? If it is, then you probably will see them trying to bring it down so they can get across the map a little bit easier, depending on how the team wants to go about it. Like I said, for 32s, it'll probably go down fairly quick. For 10s and 12s, I don't know. They may not even care. You may not even see that thing go down unless it's some kind of like a troll where a guy goes in there with some C4, just blows it for the hell of it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that really matters. It's a lot of gimmick. I mean, to be honest, it's cool, this whole evolution level idea thing, but honestly, it's all gimmick. There's very little that it will actually affect, in my opinion, other than just being plain annoying.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on a little bit, the commander's obviously going to be huge in 32 versus 32, just from the sheer standpoint of organization, getting the whole picture of the battlefield, not taking up obviously a slot. What do you think about the commander? Should it even be allowed, for that matter, in smaller, 8s, 10s, 16 versus 16, things like that? Do you think the commander is going to be a game changer or have
I
any influence?
absolutely think it should be allowed. I
Okay,
think that people need to get used to having that, because what that allows, especially for the smaller competitions, like I'm hoping that 10v10 is the standard going into Battlefield 4. We're gonna have 5-man squads. Obviously, with the commander, it's going to be 11 versus 11, but technically the commander can't do anything in the game. He's just a commander, so he'll be controlling the tomahawks, the UAVs, all that kind of stuff. But what he'll be able to do, especially since they've added in the fact that you can look at your squad leader's view, it allows you to direct traffic as you see fit. And to be honest with you, there are a lot of players out there, and I have said this before, who are amazing at putting people and directing people and making play calls. They're really good at that, but they're not the best players. So, some of these teams may have some just killer lineups, but you don't really want to sacrifice one of those really good players to have somebody in there that maybe doesn't have the best shot. But you kind of have to, because he makes the play. He's the one that gets shit. I mean, in the end, he's the one that makes the last call. So being able to take that player, put him into the commander's position where he can direct traffic, he can make the play calls, he can put, the gunships where it needs to be, he can put the supplies where it needs to be. That's going to make a huge impact, and I think that's something that the Battlefield community needs to embrace, especially the competitive community needs to embrace. Now, when you get into the 5s and that type of stuff, the smaller competitions, you don't need a commander. It's pointless. But for the 10s, 12s, 32s, that type of stuff, absolutely. Commander, I think, should be a must. And you're really going to be seeing some dynamic play coming out of these teams, because it's really going to come down to who has a better commander. It's just one more role that Battlefield will be able to distinguish themselves from these other games. I mean, look at Call of Duty. It's all infantry. Look at CS. It's all infantry. Yeah, everybody's done that. Battlefield has vehicles. It has. If you're not good at a snapshot, guess what? You got tanks. If you're not good at tanks, we got helicopters. If you're not good at helicopters, we got jets. If you're not good at any of that, we got commander mode. So it
I
just
think you said
allows
it
it
right
to be
there.
a lot more
Absolutely.
accessible to all of these players.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. Especially, I know there are some players that have pretty darn good shots, but have amazing situation awareness and make their team by directing, even if they're sitting aside in team speak, looking at score points or running timers, things like that. So anything that a commander can do to be it time vehicle assets or to just like you said direct traffic, I think is going to be amazing. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
so, speaking of game changers, what do you think's going to be the X factor of this map? The
On this
game
map right
changer.
here, I think that honestly, it's going to come down to who can control the bridge on C and who can control the waterway. Now, when I say controlling the waterway between A and E, I don't necessarily mean by boats. A good helicopter pilot can stop anything from going across. So as long as you can stop movement, from A to E, and you can control the bridge. I'm just going to assume that we're on the U.S. side. So you're controlling the bridge and stopping any kind of a push coming out from D. It's going to be fine. And to be honest with you, it looks like it's going to be really easy to do that because they have added in stuff like the barriers that you can lift up. That's going to force these infantry guys to not be able to pile into a vehicle, bum rush in there, and spawn bomb. Basically, they're going to have to get out of the truck, lower that down, then go. And that right there, if a team sets it up perfectly, it's going to be near impossible to break that. I mean, you're looking at. Just imagine how many mines are going to go down. Just
Yeah.
imagine how much C4 is going to be placed around those things. Spawn beacon, tugs, all kinds of stuff to where it's going to be near impossible to get across there. And then I think that once you get into that position right there, it's going to come down to your air. If you are spawn trapped and what they can do. So, like I said, waterway and the bridge. If you can control those two things, you have the map won. It's just like sign crossing. If you control the bridges, you're good.
Yeah, I'm interested to see on a couple things. Of course, I think the boats, is something interesting for everybody. Particularly the boats. Uh, you take the little stupid rib boat in Battlefield 3. It's certainly not a threat at all to the helicopter, but it's actually kind of challenging to hit because you're not getting any splash damage from your cannon, and a TV missile's got to be a direct hit to a very small object. And so you put these boats in who could definitely be a threat to an attack helicopter, and then combine that with not being able to get that splash damage, potentially having to land a TV on it directly, make something very interesting. But I'm gonna go against you a little bit, and I'm kind of thinking that the Levolution, as they have in some of the trailers, something like raising, lowering the bridge, even something as large as taking down that entire building or closing shop gates, things like that, may end up being a huge thing. If you think back to Battlefield 3, if we had a time machine, you went back to Battlefield 3 and they were talking about, oh, and you can shoot the buildings and drop rubble and kill people. We'd say, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Sure, they can destroy it. However, as we now know, the rubble on Sane Crossing, rubble on Bazaar has played key roles. I remember the first time I ever saw someone effectively use that rubble was on Sane Crossing, and a couple of good shots from the tank nearly wiped the entire enemy team as they were pushing from. This is 32 versus 32, I should clarify. But as they're pushing onto that, I believe it's the Charlie flag, which is the bridge flag, and 32 versus 32 Sane Crossing, nearly wiped their entire push by rubble. And likewise in Conquest Small Bazaar, even as recently as the Nations Cup, I think it was maybe the Russians, I believe, or the Germans. I can't remember which, but one of them brilliantly used rubble to really stop a push and push in onto that center B flag. So I wouldn't be surprised if the smaller elements, the flanking routes, even kind of what seems so gimmicky, like shutting off the lights in the room, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually turned into a little bit more of a competitive element, especially a team that can really master that and use that to their advantage, where the other teams, focusing on, some of the more basic, okay, we need to cap alpha, okay, we need to cap bravo, those kinds of things.
Well, a counterpoint to your point, the gimmicks will only hold up so long
Sure.
until you have the good teams who just know how to play the game and have good mechanics.
Yeah.
will win
Well,
out every
the
time.
gimmick may become a staple. So just like, knocking down that rubble on, using the rubble to kill has become a staple on some of the other maps. Um, it may end up, oh yeah, of course you gotta go in here, you gotta hit the lights, or you gotta trigger this bridge, or whatever other types of levolutions that we see in some of the other maps. Well, that just about wraps it up for this Battlefield 4 talk. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Ba bam bam ba dam bam.